Hey everybody, welcome back to Women of Innovation. We are now at our next session. So excited to have our next speakers. I do want to remind everybody that to the right of the screen, you'll see the main stage, which is where you're at. Please do us a favor and chime in and let us know the topics that you're enjoying. If you have any questions to the speakers, we'll be looking at them. So it's really important that we get, this is an interactive thing. We want you to learn everything you can from the great speakers that are about to talk about how to break through the clutter. It is my honor to introduce Janet Buston, who will be moderating the session, and Tony Portman, who will be giving us a lot of wisdom. Ladies, take it away.
Great. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I am Janet Buston, as Tracy said, and I have the pleasure of hosting this session on how to break through the culture with the right value proposition. So from my perspective, as a past advertising agency leader and a current marketing consultant, I've spent most of my career helping companies develop their brand purpose, positioning, and value proposition. So this is a subject that's really near and dear to my heart. And I would like to introduce Tony Portman today, who shares this passion and has created really particularly relevant and powerful value propositions for companies that she has started, run, and sold. So Tony, let's start with just a little bit about your background.
Well, thank you. And I'm a little bit humbled. I think, Janet, you should be answering these questions because this is what you absolutely do for a living and do it so nicely. So I'm Tony Portman. I'm currently the co-founder and CEO of a wonderful digital virtual office company startup called Walkabout, and having a bunch of fun. This is the 6th company that I have run, and I swore I was not going to do another startup, and then I sort of fell in love with the platform, and I think that's what serial entrepreneurs do, is they sort of drink their Kool-Aid and say, oh, this is something that is going to change the world. So have loved growing up in big business, like so many of the speakers that I heard a little bit earlier, in companies like IBM and Diebold, which were Fortune sort of 100 companies, and then and learned from the best there, and then surrounded myself with really bright people and have had a wonderful career building companies.
So that's a perfect background for the conversation that we're going to have this morning. So let's start with the basics, right? What a simple definition of a value proposition, because a lot of people define it different ways and there's not one just right one. But the one that I like is really simple, and it's an innovation, service, or feature intended to make a company or product attractive to its customers. Pretty straight to the point. What do you think are the most important characteristics of a great value proposition?
When you kind of primed me for, hey, I'm going to ask you this, I thought, you know what? I've got to really think about this, the textbook answer, and then what you do to apply it. I was introduced to a really cool guy from, I think it's who the Capital Factory really says is an expert. And he had a great blog white paper, and he talked about value prop by saying, do you have a vitamin or an aspirin? And Janet, I thought it was fabulous because if you think about it, it's just exactly what you said, right? What do we do to either solve a problem or create an opportunity? So I think if you were to say, what are the characteristics of a good value prop? It's concise and easy to understand. It defines sort of what you do and why you do it. Simon Sinek, start with why. It's easy for somebody to find or figure out. It does explain whether you're a vitamin or an aspirin, meaning do you solve a problem or do you provide a prevention to a problem or an opportunity? So I love that, does the company have a big headache? They want an aspirin. If they don't have a big headache, you've got to create a reason for preventing the next cancer, right? So aspirin or vitamin. And then I think the 5th is have it really visible. Communicate your soundbite and your value prop so that it sticks and it's sticky and people remember it, something to be remembered.
That's great. I love that vitamin and aspirin analogy.
Isn't that good?
Yeah, that's really strong. I'm going to use that sometime soon. So I read a statistic that said only about 2% of companies actually have a thoughtful, deliberate value proposition. And so I'm curious, with that few, why do you think it's so important to have one?
Well, I do think, companies buy or customers buy from things that resonate with them. And so if that value prop doesn't resonate with either something that solves a problem or, answers a need,
Right.
then you're not going to be in business very long. So I think it's the most critical, but I also think it's really tricky because, different value props resonate with different buyer types.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's part of the challenge is what market are you serving? Is it enterprise? Is it small, medium business? And then, or is it, sort of individual solopreneurs? And then within those, what verticals are you serving? Because verticals end up resonating with different value propositions across the landscape of what it is they do and the problems they're trying to solve. I've never in my career done B2C, business to consumer. I've always done business to enterprise or business to SMB. And what I find is that you're really honestly selling a value prop that makes the company that's buying it able to solve their value prop. And so if you understand what the buyer's value proposition is, you can align yours most favorably to be something that resonates with them because you're, either scratching an itch that they have or
Right.
you're solving a problem that they have.
Yeah, I think you can never go wrong by being customer or consumer centric, right? I mean,
Right.
if you've got your eye on that North Star, that's number one to success, I've always believed.
Yeah.
Well, tell us, your current company has a really unique offering, and it seems like it has a very compelling value proposition. I'd love for you to tell us about your company and what that value proposition is, and maybe even the role that that's played in your success.
Cool. Pre-COVID, this was a interesting idea because of the way the business landscape was altering and changing. Post-COVID, it's become an imperative. So what we have is an opportunity to provide what we call virtual real estate. We create literally a company or a school digitally and virtually so that everyone has a place to come to work, an office to come to work in, an ability to see all of their colleagues at work or at school on a college campus, and then to be able to walk around and have meaningful meetings and conversations, solving a big problem that has also been a saving grace, and that is Zoom fatigue, or what we're doing right now. You think about Dallas Startup Week, here's a week of conferencing, and some people are doing it all digitally or remotely. It's sort of mind numbing. So we have to change context, and that's what we provide. In fact, I'd love to show it to you, and I'd love to show it to anybody that's listening, our virtual school, our virtual classroom, and our virtual campus and buildings. But the real problem that we're solving is threefold. Number one, people that work remote feel isolated. They feel alone. You and I have had a couple of these conversations. We're sitting, our walls are closing around us, shelter in place, let it. But now the new norm is, are we really going to go back to brick and mortar? Are we really going to go back full time to brick and mortar?
Right.
And when we don't, you know what we miss? We miss connection. We miss connection with people, and we miss the opportunity to interact. The second thing is we're so scheduled, aren't we, Janet? It's schedule the Zoom meetings, schedule the WebEx meetings, do the GoToMeeting, do some email. Oh my gosh, I've got another conference, video conference call.
Right.
So we solve that by creating the context and the schema of the place to go to school or the place to go to work. That's very, very important. The second thing is, we really have lost, when we work remotely or distributed, connection with community and connection with brand. You're in the brand business, and brand has to resonate. It has to be a part of that value prop. But when we work at home on video conferencing, where's the brand and where's the connection to my team? So we feel like creating an environment that has brand prominent and connects community is critically important. We one of the women that I met, and I'm proud to say she's a woman, Karen Sobel-Lejeski, wrote a book, Leading a Virtual Workforce. And 20 years ago, she came up with a metric she coins virtual distance. Virtual distance ends up being 3 measurable attributes: physical, operational, and affinity. So physical makes sense. It's brick and mortar, it's time zones, it's, oh, I can see the background of your office, right? I can see where you are or who you are. The second, operationally, and I think that's where we are with the new norm of remote work and remote school. How are we going to run a classroom or a campus or a business using these tools with people not in the workplace? And then the third, which blows your mind a little bit, is what she coins affinity. And that's attachment to your team and attachment to your brand. If I'm not attached to my team and my brand, I will attrit. I won't have high trust. I won't have collaboration, and I won't have co-creation. And co-creation is that next level of collaboration that has us build on differences. It has us create the best solutions and the best outcomes. And so that's what we do at Walkabout. We create an environment that is just like coming to work. And you can walk down the hall and go into the break room and have the water cooler conversation. I can drop into your classroom and have a guest lecture. I can go to my teams and I can meet with my team and my colleagues interoperably. So we say our value prop is we turn every home into a business or a school. And it's the place that you come to work, to learn, and to live. Because if you think about it, now when we work remote from our team, our company, or our school, or learn from our school, we literally have to get connected or we become a tool. And that's kind of scary.
I love that. A couple of things there you've talked about I think are fascinating. One, just the whole concept of place has become such a new dimension in our lives that I think we didn't appreciate before. That's huge insight. And would you repeat the name of the book again for everyone?
Yeah, and I hope I get it right because I say it all the time. I think it's Leading the Virtual Workforce. It's by Karen Sobel-Lejeski, and it's her third book or her fourth book. She worked with Columbia University, and now she's got 20 years of data. And the 20 years of data have now gotten correlation impact. So the higher the virtual distance, the less productivity, trust, outcomes, attrition that you have, highest attrition. And her correlation says physical's actually the least important. Operationally is the second importance. And I say, how are you going to run your business or your school daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually? So if you think about the rhythm of the business, when people come to an office or when people come to a classroom or when people, in fourth grade, our students go to fourth grade, it's how do I run my day hourly, daily, weekly, quarterly, and annually. And I do things I call it the rhythm of the business. So she talks about operationally, you must shift when everybody's remote. And then the third, which is the most fascinating, is affinity is the highest correlation to output. So her fourth book, you'll love this. Her fourth book, I'm now talking more about Karen, but I love her. Her fourth book is all about the trust factor. And so it, interestingly enough, she was in a helicopter and with her husband, and the pilot was talking to the tower, and he said, "We have four souls on board, SOULS, for
Right.
soul. So her fourth book is Soul Leadership. And the reason that they said 4 is that that's the live body count. That's how a helicopter pilot tells the tower. So there were 4 live souls. And if we're not careful with remote work and with distance learning, we won't have live people engaged in learning or in business. So I love that, Karen Sobel-Lejeski. And I don't even know if Soul Leadership is out yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good. And it ties into authenticity, which is so important in the value proposition, as well as relationships and everything else. So really insightful. So yeah, I hope people go to your website and see it, because it's a fascinating experience.
Well, it's walkaboutco.com. So go see it, or send me Tony at walkaboutoffice.com email, and we'll hook you up and show you around. We've just, and I'm super excited about this, talk about value proposition by vertical and then by geography. We have just landed Hitachi in Japan, and they're using us not only internally for all of their work from home people, but they're also reselling the platform. And the thing about Japan, it's similar to what we're finding in New York City, is that the workforce, the professional blue collar workforce, obviously has got to get to work to do real work. And unfortunately, the white collar workforce was taking all of the subways, all of the systems, all of the mass transit. And so they've now said, wait a minute, if you're a company of 50 employees and you're a professional company, 50 employees or smaller, everyone has to work from home. 50 or more, only 50% can come to an office. And yet, because of the transit system, people were queuing up 3 and 4 hours to get on a train or a bus. So now everyone's moving to that work and home environment. So your value prop is really important, so that you end up with people like Hitachi going, I've got to have a place to go to lunch, and I've got to have a place to meet with my team. And so, and I just saw one of the questions from Yvonne, how do you get a corporate culture when we're virtual? And how do you go to lunch? We build in cafeterias. We even built in a COVID bar. So we have a bar that people can go have a drink. At a conference, we can put you on the patio. So you literally walk around to all these contextual, and I love what you said, Janet, place matters. We've got to have places, because we change our mental approach when the schema changes.
Right.
You're different in a boardroom than you are in a gym. You're different in the training room than you are in the telco room, right? Mm-hmm. You just change personas, and the brain neuroscientifically has to have that change of scenery, or we just go crazy.
Yep. That a small aside, I do a lot of work in emotional intelligence, and there's also a lot of conversation about, even when you're trying to change your mindset, just shifting your body or shifting your place helps your brain think differently. And
absolutely. And, another, in fact, he's a Dallas guy, and I follow him avidly. I think he's brilliant. Robert E. Hall wrote a book called The Land of Strangers, what technology is doing to our homes, our schools, our communities. Brilliant. It's a tough read, but it's brilliant, because it's your point, Janet. How do I read? So what I learned from Dr. Hall, or Robert Hall, he's not a doctor, and what I learned from Dr. Sandy Chapman, also a local rock star woman with the Center for Brain Health, that 70% of our communication is right brain, where creativity is. So I'm hearing what you're saying and asking, but I'm also observing your nonverbal. So we at Walkabout say video first. And by the way, millennials, which are going to be Gen Z and younger, 40% of the workforce in 5 years, Gen Z and younger, they love technology because they've grown up with Same Time and FaceTime and all of these tools and technologies that they're very comfortable with. So we've got to kind of get with the program and say video first so that I can tell if you're paying attention. I can tell if you care. I can tell if you're listening. I can tell if you've got a question by the way you furrow your brow. So we think video first and place matters.
That's great. It's great. Well, it's one thing to present a complete value proposition and it feels like it makes so much sense and it's all aligned and you see how it can work for a value proposition for your customers, for your other partners, for your internal constituents. It works across the board of all those. But how did you go about really creating that value proposition? Was it clear from the start, or did it develop over time?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I do think it evolves. I think anytime you're going to join a team, a company, a job, you have to do your own due diligence. And I had the opportunity to do that by, meeting the team and then doing my own set of research to see what resonates. I always say, self-select. If you're in a job that is not aligned with your value system or with what you care about, do us both a favor and self-select out. So I do think it evolves. I don't think it's like, oh, here's the value prop, right? And you don't get it right at the beginning because you're learning. So I think a good practice is if you're going to start a company or join a company, do your own homework. Meet people, sense culture. I loved your emotional intelligence work. Do I feel kin? Do I feel aligned? Do I feel I can be different enough in an environment that wants to focus on differences and believes differences are great? Or is there a group think going on? Is there mutual trust and respect across that? And then does the value prop resonate? I ran a call center company, which, some people would say, Tony, that's got to be the worst. It's like, and we grew that company to 15,000 employees in 16 countries in 31 centers. And we answered the phone for technology companies like Microsoft and Dell and HP and Sirius Satellite Radio. And it's like, how can you get joy and excitement out of a call center company? Well, you know what? It resonated with me because process matters. That's what makes companies money, and people matter. And at the end of the day, if the individuals, 15,000 of them, aren't talking or typing, we weren't making money. But if they didn't want to talk or type, we couldn't make money. So we had to create an environment where they felt like they were an important part of an ecosystem solving customer problems every day. So our deal was create an exceptional customer experience with every interaction. That was our why. That was our value prop. Make it different. So if you call Microsoft and you're so frustrated, make a difference in that person's life that minute. And so we grew a huge company because we said people matter and place matters and context matters.
Yeah, and purpose matters to what you're speaking.
Purpose,
right? It's giving meaning to what we do and connecting our job with the bigger picture, right?
Exactly.
And it really funnels into part of the value proposition, I think, as well. I think the average human attention span right now is about the same as a goldfish, I've read. So how do you make sure that once you get this great value proposition, how do you make sure it breaks through the clutter? Any ideas on how and when and where to communicate it?
So I also read that question. I'm like, I would just wish you would tell me that answer, especially in a startup and with the plethora of everything going on in our world. I'm pretty alarmed every day when I see how enticing TikTok is and how now TED Talks, if they're not 3 to 4 minutes, they're too long. And I'm being asked to do all these pitches for seed and venture capitalists. And they say, do it in 3 minutes, do it in 4 minutes. And I will tell you, Janet, I have a problem saying my name in 3 or 4 minutes. So, and there's so many 3 or 4 minuters out there. And
Right.
I really fear that nothing's sticking. We're not spending time on task, etc. So I think the real answer is you've got to make something as soundbitey and as clever as you possibly can to get the attention and then keep it. And it's got to be little snippets and little sound bites and SEO tags that make sure that when you say virtual workplace, you come up on every search. I just think it's really difficult now to get through the clutter personally and have your company stand out as something that is worth spending time on. So, I do think it's super important to get that value prop crisp and then say it and say it and say it and say it. And then the other thing that I think is I love not hearing from me as much as I love hearing from our customers. When we get the customer testimonial of what our product or our company means to their business, everything changes. So shifting the focus from internal to external and having that be what the focus is like, I love your product because here's how it's helping me stay connected to my team, to my company. Here's what's solving my business problem. I think that matters more than what the CEO says.
Right. I think that's right on. And the other thing too, I think is so important is Aperture, right? It's like, it's communicating when the time's going to be right for your audience and spending time thinking about that is a strategy in and of itself, right? Of when they're going to be most receptive. So not a whole lot of time still to go, but for those people who are considering right now, hopefully we have I'm sure some people listening that are in that stage right now of a business when they're considering a new business or a new product or in the early stages, or even if they've developed an established business, what advice would you give them in going about developing that proposition? You've given us some thoughts throughout here, but anything else you would add there?
I think probably the only other thing is, I call it, and we can say this because it's the day for women, but I think men do it too. It's like trying on shoes. So get a soundbite, get a snippet, get your little value prop defined, and then try it on. And start to pay attention to what resonates with whom. I think it's really interesting to figure out, are you a company that's an early adapter company and you've got to find those mavericks, or are you solving a big problem in an enterprise where you're talking to people that want safety and security and want to know that they've got something that's tried and true. So I think the value prop changes, and I loved your Aperture. What a great word for that. To mirror what the needs and wants are of the marketplace. And depending on whether you're an aspirin or a vitamin, determining whether or not you've got a value prop and they've got a problem big enough to need a solution to, and making sure that they're aware of that opportunity, that problem, that pain point, and then making sure you align that directly with what's going to solve their problem.
Yeah. Yep. We just got a comment about liking that and the idea of trying it on. And we can't be afraid to keep trying, trial and error, test and learn, keep going. I mean, that's the world of an entrepreneur anyway, right? So it should relate to the value proposition as well.
Yeah.
So I think we're out of time here. So I'm going to throw it back to Tracy. And I loved our chat.
It was great. It was really, really, I think you guys brought up some really great things. And again, I just thank you. I know you guys are really busy women. I thank you for giving back to Dallas-Fort Worth women entrepreneur community. So thank you so much for joining us today at Women of Innovation.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Great. Well, everybody, stay tuned because we have another great session coming up. We're going to do a 5-minute quick change. So go get a cup of coffee, get some Diet Coke, and we'll see you back here in 5 minutes. Thank you.